Welcome back to Niagara Votes 2019. I'm Grant LaFleche from the St. Catharines Standard, and we are here with our last chat with the candidates for the St. Catharines riding, Krystina Waler from the Conservative Party. Welcome to the newsroom.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So let's just start really quickly for our readers and viewers who might not know you yet. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about you and why you're running.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my name's Krystina Waler, as you mentioned, born and raised in St. Catharines, and went to Sir Winston Churchill for high school. And then I continued my education. I went to Wilfrid Laurier. I majored in biology, minored in chemistry, and then I moved on a few years later to do my master's in health technology assessment and management. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
and so actually some people say, well, what does that focus on? And that looked at how to best spend healthcare dollars to get maximum output, like quality of life for patients. So just an example of that I like to give quickly is previously in Ontario, we used to do blood tests that included testing for vitamin D deficiency. And so one of the things that experts looked at to streamline services and care and maximize dollars was the fact that almost 90% of patients were testing vitamin D deficient. And so they pulled the test, saved millions of dollars, and just started telling doctors to tell their patients to start taking vitamin D supplements. So it's looking at things like that, which is a skill that I think is applicable across different different ministries, different governments.
Why did you, just quickly, your first two degrees are in hard science before you go into management. So why did you choose that route instead of, say, a more research-focused or a more science-focused background?
Yeah, I think I worked in different areas in humanitarian aid over my lifetime as well. And most recently, I've been running medical missions to Ukraine to treat soldiers injured in the war. And I take teams from all over Canada, about 30 people. And so I was managing teams in that, and I really liked that aspect of healthcare. And so I decided to take a look at how I could best use my resources, management, and also I believe in fiscal responsibility. It's part of the reason why I'm running as a Conservative. And so looking at a degree that looks at cost effectiveness and cost utility analysis in healthcare was something that I was just passionate about.
And then now you're running for office. Why?
Well, I love this city. As I mentioned, I was born and raised here. I have strong family roots here. All my grandparents decided to retire here. But I have friends who constantly move away because they don't feel like they can find career opportunities here. I have other friends who are living here saying that they can't afford to enter the housing market, that life's getting more expensive. And so I wanted to run with the Conservatives in St. Catharines to try and help positive change to some of those things and make this city the best place it possibly can to live and to work and to raise a family and to advocate for St. Catharines and Ottawa.
And you actually come from a bit of a political family.
A little bit.
Your sister works in the Premier's office.
Yes.
Your dad was the CEO he was a councillor himself at one point. Your stepfather,
My
Mr.
stepfather.
Brickell?
My stepfather. Yep.
Does any of that play into your decision? Are you just a political bunch, and this is kind of where you ended up because that's where other members of the Waler clan are?
The Waler clan. We, this was a really, as you can see, my background didn't lend itself to politics, and so me ending up in politics was sort of a roundabout way of when I was involved in these medical missions in Ukraine and helping orphans and all this stuff. I saw the importance of diplomacy and the role a government can play and the way that you can affect change from within. And so really, in my desire to help St. Catharines be the best place it can possibly be, and that is not something that I say I can do on my own. This is a team effort. We have to work across party lines, across government lines to do. I went into it sort of with an open heart and an open mind and a positive attitude of hope and change. And so I came on to this on my own, actually. And to be honest, Andrew Shearer is a friend, and I believe in his leadership. I helped on his leadership. And I think he'll make a great prime minister. And so that's how I ended up running for the Conservatives now in St. Catharines.
It's a very good segue into my first kind of election question. The integrity of the federal leaders has been front and center almost since day one. And we're very familiar with the issues surrounding Mr. Trudeau. But in the case of Mr. Shearer, there have been questions about his resume, making a claim that he was an insurance broker when he was not. why he didn't disclose previously his dual citizenship, particularly after his own comments about past leaders and political figures with dual citizenship. Why should, and this seems to be when you look at the polls and you look at some of the way the public are talking about the election, they're not really happy with anyone. Why should voters, and I guess this is your chance to make a pitch for your boss, but why should anybody accept his integrity when his resume was incorrect? He didn't disclose something important, a fact that would get you or I fired from our jobs. So why should people look to Andrew Shearer and accept his leadership and accept his integrity when he has his own black marks on his record?
Yeah, I think that people genuinely want a leader right now who understands the average Canadian. And Andrew is that guy. He grew up in the middle class in Mississauga. He had a hard-working family. And I always think of this story where he said that his father had this amazing magazine subscription that he loved. And he had to make the choice one day because his daughter wanted dance lessons to give up his beloved magazine subscription because he wanted to pay for his daughter's dance lessons. And so he grew up understanding hard work, the value of $1, and the fact that you can't have it all. You have to sometimes make sacrifices. And I think he carries that over into his leadership. And he is a man of integrity, and he's got a great wife and a great head on his shoulders.
Then how do you end up with a resume that's not correct? I mean, that's the part that made people raise their eyebrows. Because if I did that on a job application, that application would not be accepted. Same for you.
So I think that there's some discrepancies in how that story went overall. Having said that, yeah, I mean, Andrew could have been clearer on that issue. There's no question. And I think, like you said, that some leaders should have been clearer on certain things throughout this whole process. But I have confidence in Andrew. I have confidence in his leadership, in his abilities, and I think he'll make a great prime minister. And I think, our party's tagline is, we want to help you get ahead. But Andrew genuinely believes that. Like, he genuinely wants to help people not feel like they are $200 away from insolvency at the end of the month. Or that they can't pay their bills, or that they can't put their kids in dance lessons.
I want to shift gears just a little bit. Climate change has been a major hot button issue for this campaign. So has the gas tax. Interestingly, there seems to be a broad consensus amongst economists, including William Nordhaus and Paul Romer just won the Nobel Prize for economics, that carbon pricing or gas tax is an effective way to reduce emissions, provided that tax is set high enough to change consumer and industrial behavior. The Tories seem to be dead flat against that kind of a measure. Can you explain why, and if that's not a measure that Canada should be using, what should Canada be doing? Because its emissions continue to rise, save and except for BC, where it has sort of held the line. So
the one thing I want to start by saying is that, Conservatives do care about the environment. We know it's important. It's important to take care of our planet for future generations. As far as the carbon tax goes, we look at it as a revenue plan that the Liberals put out, not as a legitimate environmental plan. And like you said about the pricing right now it's at $20 a ton. And the Parliamentary Budget Office said that they would have to go up to $102 a ton to reach the Paris Accord. So they're actually moving further and further away from their targets. And we don't believe that average moms and dads who are trying to get their kids from point A to point B, or seniors who are trying to go and pick up their groceries, should be paying extra every day for these as a result of the carbon tax. So, the big polluters got a sweetheart deal. They don't pay for 90% of it. And meanwhile, moms and dads and hardworking Canadians are taking the brunt of the cost. So what do we want to do, right? We believe in investing in green technology, not taxing people. We want to incentivize people, right? We want to look at ways to have a cleaner and greener environment, and we want to take the climate fight global. Because frankly, carbon molecules or CO2 equivalent molecules, or however you want to frame it, they don't know borders. And we have some really big polluters in this world that we should be incentivizing and helping.
So can you give an example of how you would do that?
Yeah, sure. So, China, for example, has something like 3,000 coal plants, right? So if we even just got 100 of those plants to switch to some more efficient carbon capture technology to reduce their emissions, we'd be making a really big dent in the grand scheme of things. Actually, we'd probably be saving about 300, I believe the number was 300 megatons.
We're sort of careening to the end of this, but I did want to touch briefly on affordable housing, because it's come up in the previous interviews that we've done, and certainly for you've touched on the tagline, you've touched on why the party rejects carbon pricing or gas tax. Affordable housing is a giant issue in this town, in particular, as you know, and it's not just social housing. It's sort of housing for the middle class. Its affordability is shrinking. Just to rent an apartment, St. Catharines costs nearly as much as it does in Toronto in some cases now. What can the federal government legitimately do to alleviate some of that and either increase the amount of social housing or affordable housing is available in a market like St. Catharines?
So the Niagara District Council of Women put on a talk at the St. Catharines Public Library a few days ago, and I went and listened just because I wanted to understand what the frontline workers and the politicians at the municipal and regional level were dealing with every day, because this is a multifaceted issue that is going to take every level of government working together to seriously address, right? And at a federal level, I hope to be able to convene a working group of everybody together. Having said that, Andrew and the Conservative plan has put out some measures to address that. So that's looking at things like the federal land initiative and making federal surplus lands available for municipalities. The other issue that I actually heard echoed a few times at that evening was that there's a lot of red tape. And there's a lot of bureaucracy that people need to go through and get affordable housing. And the sentiment was that they wanted some of that reduced, and they wanted people to get into these buildings at a faster rate. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to be a champion for that. That goes with our platform. Andrew wants to put a minister in charge of red tape reduction. Mm-hmm. And so at various levels, looking at ways that we can make processes easier all across the board, I think is valuable.
There are two questions that have come across Twitter when we announced we were doing these chats. We've asked them of all the candidates, so it's your turn. Okay. The first one, I think you more or less answered it, but I got to ask it anyway. Do you accept that human activity exacerbates climate change? Yes. And then the other one is people want to know what the candidate's personal view is on a woman's right to choose.
Okay. So I will say that I'm not in this to advance a personal agenda of my own of any kind. Andrew's been very clear that this issue will not be reopened by our party. Having said that, you want my personal opinion.
Yes.
So I personally am pro-choice. However, I do think that this is, again, a multifaceted issue. We have a lot of different points of view in our party, and we constantly want to look at ways to unite us, and we have open and honest conversations about this several times. And so we look at different policies, like trying to make adoption EI benefits available and encouraging people who adopt and helping them so that they have the same type of benefits that maternity leave and paternity leave parents get as well.
Okay. And I guess just to wrap up, this is your final chance to make your pitch. You're in your last week. Mm-hmm. We're going to be on Election Day pretty soon. What is it you want people to think about between now and the 21st?
I want to be St. Catharines' voice in Ottawa. I don't think St. Catharines needs another voice from Ottawa down here. And so I'm somebody who's a consensus builder. I am a hard worker. I believe in working across party lines, across levels of government to get things done. I have a great deal of respect for Jenny Stevens and Jim Bradley. They've worked hard to serve our community. As far as a conservative goes, conservatives believe that you know how to spend your money better than the government does, unlike liberals, who I believe think that they know how to spend your money better than you. And so we have a great plan. It's an achievable plan. We believe in fiscal responsibility. We don't promise things that we can't deliver. So if you want a strong, responsible government who will deliver on the promises that they've made, unlike previous governments who have promised things like pharmacare and not delivered in the past, we have an achievable goal, and we hope to bring that positive vision to St. Catharines.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and remember to come back to our website on October the 21st, Election Day, for our complete election results show starting at 8 p.m. Of course, make sure you get out to the ballots and vote first. Thank you very much.